Oh, very good. I'm glad you went into that. Now you also familiar with? We also teach in the course. We also talk about pre-production and production and alpha release and beta release and golden version. Are you familiar with those type of terms? And if you are, what do you know about those type of terms within the working environment from your perspective?
Okay, yes, so definitely. So at Epic, a game will go into pre-production, right? And basically, pre-production is like a designer and an artist, essentially, at the beginning. And like the artists are usually like our concept artists, and they're just kind of fleshing out like ideas and whatnot. And then after a little bit, like a gameplay programmer will come in, and he might do some like proof of concept mechanics and everything. And so basically the point of the pre-production phase is to kind of like visualize this idea, right? And you take like this visualization, these concept art drawings, you know, all these design documents that a designer will write up on like backstory and whatnot, and like these little like tech demos that, you know, a gameplay programmer might do to show off various game mechanics. And you'll take all that and you'll go up to, in our case, you know, like the head honchos and be like, hey, this is the game idea that, you know, we have, and this is, you know, all the stuff we have to help you visualize it, and then they're going to look at it and be like, again, you know, is this something that's marketable? And if they're like, yeah, I think this is marketable, this is worth investing resources in, they'll greenlight that to go into regular production. And just kind of like any other project, you know, once it goes into regular production, it's still going to start off with like a very small number of people, and throughout the lifetime of the project, more and more people will keep moving over to it, all the way up to the point where you get to RTX and stuff like that. And RTX is like release to cert, which is a major milestone, particularly on consoles, where, you know, you're moving over like large chunks of the company to get everything done in time, so that the game gets certified, so that it can go to RTM, which is released to manufacturing, and that's also what's called like going gold. And that means you burn the master copy of the game. That's what goes out on store shelves and what everyone ends up playing.
Outstanding. Well, you basically answered all the core questions and stuff of this, and so what I'm going to do is go into allowing the open questions now. And I guess you're going to get bombarded, hopefully get bombarded by some of the students. Before we go into that, what would you suggest to students that have just graduated or in close to being graduated, or even at the beginning of their educated academic careers? What would be your suggestion to them to allow them to move into this type of career?
Okay, so I would say, you know, figure out what you want to do, right? Like, let's say, hey, I want to be like a physics programmer, or I want to be a graphics programmer, or AI, or whatever it is you want to do, because there's, you know, a lot of different specializations within game development, and I would just bust your butt and become amazing at that one thing. And while you're becoming amazing at that one thing, learn all of the other things. Like, at least get some hands-on time with that, because, you know, essentially, in most companies, you know, you're just going to do that one thing, but especially like at Epic, we do this all the time. Like, we might be like, oh crap, you know, we need so-and-so needs some help with this to get this done on time. So they'll just like grab someone and throw them on there, and you got to be able to like figure out, you know, what's going on, how do I help this guy with this? And if you don't have, you know, a lot of familiarity with that, that could be a real problem. Another thing I would recommend doing is start working on tech demos like right now. Start working on side projects, get involved, start making stuff to show that you're passionate, that you love what you're doing, and start working in teams. Programming is, believe it or not, it's a people problem. In terms of like the technical skills, it's either you have them or you don't, by and large. And really what it all comes down to is you're working with these groups of people towards this common goal, and if you can't effectively communicate ideas, if you can't effectively communicate problems, and, you know, be able to work together with all these people that have, you know, these different backgrounds and whatnot, you're just not going to cut it. And it's a very hard skill to get, and I would heavily recommend that you just like grab like 4 or 5 people, whatever, and just start working on something, because that's the only way you're going to learn those things. And it's worth its weight in gold right there to get those skills. And that when you walk into like an employer's office, then you can be like, hey, you know, look at all these things I've done. I've got this experience working in these teams and stuff, and that's going to set you apart from the status quo, because that's what you guys are going for, and get excited, man. Like, making games is fun, and have a good time. It's a lot of work. It's hard work. If you want to do a 9-to-5 job, games isn't a good way to go. Simulations is fabulous. Simulations pays well. You can still be doing graphics, whatever. It might not be quite as sexy, if depending on who you are. But if you're looking for the 9-to-5 job, that's the way to go. But games, it's
Russ is gonna love you on that one.
yeah. But games, it's a lot of work. But I mean, if that's what you love to do, man, get it done. You guys are like 18, 19, 20, whatever. And you're young, you're just starting out, it's an exciting time of your lives, and just work hard and have fun, and you guys will be successful. Just do the things you need to do, and don't get caught up with all that crap. And you guys, you know what I'm talking about. Don't get caught up with the drugs. Don't get caught up with the alcohol. Everyone that I was in school with that did drugs and drank too much, they either failed out of the class or they don't have a job right now. Every single person I was in. Every person I was in school with, every person I was in school with that freaking had their nose in the books, was working hard on, tech demos, working in their projects with people, every single one of them have a job right now. So it's, get out there, guys, and have some fun and kick some butt, and you will be successful, I promise you.
So you also touched base on another thing, because I've worked with a lot of engineers and stuff all over the world. I've been all over the world and worked with them, and a lot of them that I notice they get a lot of big egos, and they want to build these little invisible walls around themselves and basically stay on an island independent. So you're basically saying people skills is like you have to also be able to communicate and work with people, not just know your stuff and be able to be an Einstein in the gaming field, but also be able to communicate and work with people too. Is that what you're trying to say too? Did I read that right, or did I read that wrong?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, exactly. So for example, like when we're interviewing a candidate, like in interviews that I've actually participated in, like recently, we have rejected a candidate that we felt had technical skills that were up to par, but we felt that they would have a personality issue. They wouldn't just fit like, the Epic's personality. And every company, has kind of its own way of doing things and everything, and that's not something you can, anticipate beforehand. But a lot of it is just, can you communicate? Are you like a fun guy to hang out with? Do we think, like, are you going to go into like a crazy rage and start shooting up people in the parking lot? That's not good.
I'd
and as
never
a matter
be
of
hired
fact,
in.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, at least with Epic, like the very first interview I did was with our human resources manager, and all it was to find out if I was like, a cool guy, essentially. If she felt that
HR's
I
good
was
about
someone,
that. That's right. I agree.
Yeah, that would fit the company mold. And do not underestimate the importance of being able to talk to people, being able to communicate. And if it's something that that, hey, like I'm an introvert, I like working by myself, which a lot of programmers are like that, it would behoove you to actively work in collaborating with people, because it's something that you just absolutely have to get better at. And no one ever gets perfect at it. It's such a complicated and difficult thing, but it's so critical to the success of anything.
Outstanding. All right, well, I'm sure that the rest are on the seat of their pants and have been drooling and waiting and probably going to go out in the parking lot and shoot me because I'm not giving them any time yet. But I had basically us set up for an hour to yab my mouth and then allow them. So all rest to do now is the time for student open questions, and all you have to do, I'm going to turn on y'all's mic, but everybody don't talk at one time, and kind of raise your hand when you want to say something, and I'll call upon you, and you can yak until Kieth is so tired and exhausted he's ready to go. All right, I have Chris here. Chris has got his hand open, and go ahead, Chris. The mic, Christopher, the mic is all yours.
Thank you. I was wondering, in terms of portfolio, what format do you think is a good method for a portfolio? For example, right now, I have some of my stuff on an FTP site that I made a document with all the links in it, but I'm not so sure that is the best way to go.
Okay, so it really depends on the company that you're submitting your resume to. And what I actually did was I had my resume in a whole, like 3 different formats. I had like an online version, I had a PDF version, and then I had a paper version, which essentially, you just print out the PDF and there you go. And then also I had all of my demos in like a zip file, and some companies wanted me to mail in a CD with both like my resume on it and the zip file with the demo code. Some wanted like, just a paper copy of the resume. Some only wanted the electronic version. And so it really depends, and I would just set up, like do one of each. And do the research on resumes. There's a lot of information out there. If you have like a career development center or anything like that, I highly recommend, you guys make use of their resources. When I was writing my resume, no, I don't. I don't even know why you would use MySpace, to be honest with you. But when I was writing my resume, I would anytime I made a change, I would get it proofread by like 4 different people. I was, very, very particular about making sure that like every word, was what it needed to be, because it's, that's really the first thing they see. It's the first impression they get of who you are, and if your resume doesn't cut it, they're just going to toss it out, and they don't even give you a chance. You might be like this amazing, really cool guy, but if your resume sucks, then they're not even going to get a chance to meet you. And really, that's what you're trying to get to, right? That first like phone interview or whatever it is. Once you're there, then it's all on, like who are you and what can you do for that company. But just looking at this like emotionless piece of paper, that's really hard to get that right sometimes.
Outstanding. Okay, Christopher, did he answer your question? You got anything else before I move to Dave? Okay, great. All right, Dave, you are up now. The mic is all yours. Okay, Dave, do you have a mic?
Yeah,
if not, that's fine.
I just went ahead and posted it up there, and he can just, basically I'm just looking, is there any place that you recommend to go ahead and start? I mean, I don't know, I like work full-time, so I attend online. I really don't know where a good place to start is, if there's user groups online or something like that to actually look for what I'm trying to get into.
What are you interested in? Like, what gets you going? Do you like graphics, AI? What are you interested in?
Actually, I like graphics, I like physics, I like AI, I kind of like it all, but, so, I mean, it's like, probably the thing that I've always enjoyed the most is the graphics, just because that's always, like, one of the big things I always look at first, whenever I go to look at a game, and
Right on. So, okay, so, like, maybe one way that maybe I would approach this is, like, I love graphics, so just go on to something like gamedev.net, onto a forum, and be like, hey guys, I'm thinking about just starting up like a little engine, a group of guys just create like a little engine just because, I want to learn how to do it and it's something I'm interested in. And then you'll probably get like 1 or 2 people who are like, hey, yeah, I'm just starting out, I don't know a whole lot either. Let's, just try and do this and see what we can do. Another good thing is to go and go work on like existing open source projects, like go work on Ogre or something and be like, hey, I'm going to add this feature to Ogre, and then, send it to them, and they might be like, oh, this is awesome, we're going to integrate it, or maybe, hey, these are some improvements you can do before we can integrate this. But, the important thing is just that you're getting out there and, do some research, just be like, hey, is there anyone out there like working on engines or AI problems or whatever, or if you have any classmates, don't be afraid to ask people. Another thing that's very important, though, is if you can, try to work on large existing code bases. And a reason for that is because, like, for example, Unreal Engine 3, right, it's like 1.5 million lines of code. And my first day of work was like, I walked into the room, and my boss was like, hey, here's Unreal Engine 3, go. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So, and like using other people's code is another important skill that's like very difficult, because like a lot of times like the guy that wrote that will come back and look at it and be like, yeah, dude, I have no idea what the heck I was thinking when I wrote that. And so it's a good thing to kind of throw yourself out there outside your comfort zone and, get used to working with other people's code. So working on something like Ogre or whatever, might be a good place to start for you, especially if you are having a hard time finding like other people to start up your own project with.
Very good.
Thank you.
I just wanted to let know before. Okay. Great. I just want to let you know before I move to the next hand raised, is I've actually developed a DeVry gamers group on LinkedIn.com, and that's a professional group. And Keith, I welcome you to join that group. I know Paul and some others are members, professional members of that, and it's open to anyone from DeVry to join that group. It's a new group, so it's not really matured into what Keith was trying to tell you about, but that's a good little start, I guess. So you're welcome to join that. All right, our next hand up is Jackie, and Jackie, the mic is all yours now.
Appreciate that, Samuel. Thank you very much. Keith, I appreciate you making time to be with us here this evening.
My pleasure.
Certainly appreciate your comments about reading other people's code in our programming courses. We very much bring home the point of the importance of commenting your code. For the simple fact of, like what you said, you'll write your code and then 6 months later go back to what you wrote and be left with, well, what was I thinking? And without the comments, it makes it a little more challenging for that. But I guess my question for you, though, when you went through the interview process, after you drew some positive attention as a result of your portfolio that led to you getting an interview, any part of the interview process, did they have you write some code for them, or program some code, or did they put you just in front of a whiteboard with a marker? How did they test you to see if you truly could back up what your portfolio was demonstrating?
Okay, so the interview process that I went through here at Epic was, the first thing I did was I sent in my resume, and they didn't call me back. And I was like, oh man, I suck at life. So about a week later, I just did, I sent a casual follow-up email. It was like, hey, I just wanted to make sure that you received my resume and stuff, and if there's any questions you have, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer them. And that was actually when they responded to me. And so the very next thing they did after that was they sent me a programming test. And the programming test was 10 questions. It was something that I had 3 days to do or something like that on my own time. And so for each question, I had to write up a response and then provide a code sample of whatever that question was, and handed that in, and that passed their internal tests. Well, our internal tests, which we have for all of our programming tests, we have this whole suite of automated stuff that we plug your code into, and if any one of them fail, it's you're automatically just washed out. And beyond that, I went on to the human resources interview, which I had mentioned earlier with our human resources manager, and that was just, am I a cool guy? Does she like me? Am I going to be a crazy psycho serial killer? Stuff like that. So
we just make psycho games. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I managed to convince her I wasn't crazy, and I went from that on to a technical interview, and that was over the phone as well. And I can't remember if I did 1 or 2 of those, but once I got past the technical interviews, they flew me out on site at Epic, and I had essentially 3 stages of interviews, and this was all within 5 or 6 hours. So it was like a blitzkrieg. And the first thing I did was I went out to lunch with a bunch of other engine programmers, which is actually pretty laid back. They're just asking me, what have you done, in the past, and right, yeah, exactly. And it was 4 or 5 guys, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Just we were at Ruby Tuesdays, just chilling and ordered cheeseburgers.
See, right, wine and dine, right there, buddy.
And then after that, I came back to Epic, and so then I did what you mentioned, Jackie, the whiteboard, and now that was an interesting experience. So basically what happened with that was I went up on the 3rd floor, and we have these little offices called the Fishbowl, and there's no windows. And well, there's it's in the middle of the building, so there's some windows that let you see in the hallway, but there's no windows to outside or anything. And all it is was a table with some chairs and a whiteboard. So I went up in the front of the room, and we had 4 engine programmers come in, and they just started asking me questions. And basically I had to solve all these problems in front of them on this whiteboard, and some of them I had to write out production quality code, like right there on the whiteboard. And finished that, and I was already exhausted by that point because that just like drained the life out of me. And,
like a math test, yeah.
Yeah, and so at that point I thought I was done, and so like we were going back through the building, and I could see the door, right? I could see the light, and what I didn't know is that the president, Mike Capps, his office was like right next to the entrance, and also we made like a hard right into his office. Yeah, I was like, holy crap, I totally didn't see this coming. And so then I had another interview then. That was my third and final one with Mike Capps and Josh Adams and Ron Prestonbeck, who are both engine programmers. And, you know, it was more along the lines of, you know, what have you done? And they're just kind of finding out, like, who I am and stuff like that. So it was pretty exhausting, and actually when I was on the plane ride home back to Florida, the guy I was sitting next to asked what I was doing in Raleigh, and after I told him, he bought me a free thing of whiskey. He felt sorry for me.
They wanted to get their money's worth. I know how that is. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Well, that's very good. So you're saying that not only should you have your portfolio or your resume, but you kind of need to be familiar or brush yourself before you go on some of these interviews, because you never know what's going to happen, especially if they fly you out.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
I was.
Yeah. If you guys can get any
I know
experience with. I'm sorry.